Hello, everyone. I'm Wendy Fradlin, and I am Communications and Membership Director at Dining for Women. I work as a staff person at Dining for Women's home office in Greenville, South Carolina. And I am thrilled today to be talking about Dining for Women's upcoming trip to Rwanda, not only because I know this is going to be an amazing trip for our members, a life-changing trip. So very excited that I will get to go on this trip. So I am looking forward to hearing more about it and welcoming our representatives from Elevate Destinations. As you may recall, Dining for Women selected Elevate Destinations as our travel provider a little earlier this year. And right after they were selected, Elevate got busy planning our trips for 2018. And as we have been sharing with everyone, we are planning 3 trips next year. The first one to Rwanda in February. The second will be to Bhutan in August. And the third to Guatemala in the late fall. Date for that to be determined. But today we are talking about the first trip to Rwanda, February 18th to the 25th. And what we're going to do today is have some information shared by our Elevate representatives, who I'll introduce shortly. And then we will have an opportunity. I will ask them a few questions that I think many of you may have. And you also have the opportunity to type in your own question using the chat feature that you should see on the screen. You can just type in your question and we will do our best to answer it. And at the end, I'll also give you how you can get connected with our Elevate people to find out more and talk to them further. So I want to welcome Catherine Reddington and Meredith Hauser, both of whom are working very, very hard with us on the Rwanda trip and our future trips. And we greatly appreciate having you as our travel providers and are excited to be working with you. And I thought maybe we could start off, Catherine, with just having you tell everyone a little bit about Elevate Destinations.
Yeah, thank you, Wendy. It's great to be here and it's great to be partnering with Dining for Women. Elevate Destinations is a travel company that started in 2005 exclusively as a donor travel organization, which is the most bizarre way to form a travel company, to be so niche into this field of sort of deep learning journeys that are sort of off the beaten path, but it has informed our values as a company. We partner exclusively with nonprofit organizations, our foundations, our people that are going with a social benefit to their organization. We all have backgrounds in international development, international relations, sustainability. And so everything that we're implementing on the ground is executed through a lens of sustainability and making sure that the places that we're visiting are benefiting from it. And that means everything from carbon offsetting a trip to who owns the hotels, to where that money eventually lands, to making sure all of our vendors are signing off things on the code, which is an anti-sex trafficking law in the travel industry. We also try to empower local guides to take ownership over content wherever appropriate. And we also have a model called Buy One, Give One that is on our private side of our company for vacations, which helps fund local field trips for students, orphans, vulnerable children that wouldn't have the chance to go and visit the natural wonders of their own country. And we are also a female-run and operated business, which sort of leads us back to this topic around gender. So anytime we get to talk or lead a trip around gender, it's really difficult for the staff to keep their hands off of that itinerary. We're all really excited about it, especially this particular one for Dining for Women in Rwanda.
Well, I think it's clear from what you just described, Catherine, that your values are very consistent with Dining for Women's values and our mission. And I think that this trip to Rwanda will be a great example of our partnership. And so as I say, we'll have both Meredith and Catherine tell us a little bit about Rwanda as a country and about the specific itinerary for this trip. And I'm going to turn it over to Meredith first and ask her to tell us more about why people should go and visit Rwanda.
Thanks, Wendy. Welcome again to everyone. My name is Meredith. So I just wanted to take a minute to discuss briefly why Rwanda and why this country is such a fascinating place to visit for an organization that advocates for the well-being of women and girls around the world. So Rwanda is an incredibly dynamic landscape for many reasons, but just to name a few, in just the past 2 decades alone, they've experienced a massive economic boom, they've created an all-inclusive healthcare system, and they've laid out a variety of policies through the lens of gender equity. And there's no way to avoid it. Much of this turnaround is due largely in part to the 1994 genocide. And while the genocide is not the focal point of this trip, it's impossible to ignore, because when a society hits rock bottom like that, the way in which it rebuilds and puts itself back together will inevitably change the course of the nation's history. And women in Rwanda were instrumental in putting their nation back together again. And that's because most of those killed during the genocide were men, and many male perpetrators fled to neighboring nations. So after the genocide, 70% of Rwanda's population was female. And so faced with ensuring their family's very survival, women stepped up. Mothers took in orphaned children and organized support groups for widows. Women changed from cleaning buildings to reconstructing them. They farmed and they started businesses. And throughout the country, they created stability in the aftermath of unspeakable violence. And because this has all happened in just the past 2 decades, all the failures and successes of Rwandan society in this short period of time really allows us to closely examine the role that women have played in building Rwanda into the country it is today. And because of that, you're seeing a landscape that is very much informed by women. And as you may or may not know, Rwanda leads the world in terms of gender equity in politics and economics, with one of the highest rates of women involved in government. However, that's not to say that there's not still progress to be made. Rwanda is leading in gender equality in many ways in the political sphere, but in other ways, they are still behind in the domestic sphere. Part of this has to do with the influence of the Catholic Church. Others have to do with conversations that are still very much taboo within Rwandan society. For example, menstruation, sexuality, abortion, etc. And there are still cultural expectations on the home front that women are supposed to be submissive to their husbands and take care of the household and the children. And that is also due in part to a lack of equitable access to education across the country. Another issue in Rwanda is the fact that domestic violence is a major problem, which is partly a result of exposure to so much violence during the genocide. So by visiting Rwanda, you will be able to see this dichotomy in society and really unpack how women are both leading the charge in many areas and where there is still room for improvement in some areas, and areas that benefit from support from groups like Dining for Women. And with this custom-created itinerary for Dining for Women, you'll have the opportunity to see on the ground the incredible work that is being done at grantee sites such as Sustainable Health Enterprises and Global Grassroots and Gardens for Health. And so with that, I'd like to turn it over to Catherine to give a broad strokes overview of our itinerary.
Thanks, Meredith. So I'm going to share my screen with everyone. All right, can everyone, oh, it's playing the slideshow. Can everyone see my screen?
I can.
Okay, that works for me. So I just want to preface that I am giving you a very broad strokes overview of the itinerary. Meredith and I are very accessible, so if you have more detailed questions, please feel free to reach out to us, and we're happy to sort of go into those details. But I just want to start with your arrival is a very easy day on day one. You'll be welcomed at the airport. You do not need to worry about finding your way to the hotel. You will be escorted at the airport to the hotel, and you'll have a welcome dinner that evening. Nothing is expected of you. So if you come off of that flight exhausted, don't worry, you will fall into good hands. I'm just going to show you a picture of Francois. Obviously, that's me and my colleague Naomi, but that's Francois. Also on this screen, and she is going to be your local guide. She is a survivor of the genocide. She is very smart and dynamic and kind and has a beautiful story, and will help on this trip sort of ground a lot of the experiences and information coming at you into sort of daily reality. So there's probably no questions she hasn't been asked. She's run around 60 delegations to Rwanda, so you are in great hands. Just jumping into the first day of real activities, we're starting off with sort of the culture, history, and genocide of Rwanda. The way that we've created this is for you to jump into a really local tour at the Nyarurambo Women's Center. Nyarurambo is the oldest historical neighborhood in Rwanda, and you're going through a very local tour. This is part of the pictures I took on this tour. You're going to weave through markets, meet people, talk about aspects of Rwanda and history at a very local daily life sort of lens. You'll also have the opportunity to have lunch in a local woman's house there while you're sort of digesting the content that you experience there. They also have, just a side note, an amazing gift shop with adorable outfits, especially children's clothes. I have a child, I bought a lot, so you'll enjoy that place. After that, you will actually go to the Genocide Museum, which is also a memorial, and it will give you a great background in history around both the pre-colonial, colonial and colonial history of Rwanda that sort of led up to the genocide, and also how the genocide has informed the decisions to move forward into reconciliation. You will have a docent at the end of this visit to ask some Q&A questions. It's beautifully done. It's an emotional museum, but it does help set the foundation for what you're about to experience in the next few days ahead. These are some of the photos from the Genocide Museum. And as we're sort of moving into the next day, we're moving into sort of how we view reconciliation policies and strategies and structures that really support women. We're going to start at a really macro level. And talk to the Gender Monitoring Office that will sort of inform how the government has moved forward in their policies post-genocide and how that's been very inclusive of women. You will see a tremendous amount of political will around gender equity in Rwanda. That doesn't necessarily mean there's not a lot of tension about how that's being implemented and how much work there has to be done. But it will be a fascinating sort of discussion to frame the trip. As we move forward, you're going to visit the Akila Institute, which is a tertiary educational system that is dedicated to women. They have degrees in business management, IT, and hospitality. You're going to get to meet the women. You're going on a personalized tour with some of the women, and you'll really understand what a huge role this institution has played in Rwanda. This is still part of some of the tours and walking tours. Look at that little nugget. He's so cute. And as we move into the next day, you're going to be visiting SHE, Sustainable Health Enterprises. They are, I guess this is a good picture of what they're doing. They create menstrual pads that are actually accessible to women that are living at or close to the poverty level, which is, as you know, access to education. When you're menstruating, you're often staying home if you don't have access to sanitary pads. So you're going to actually see what they're doing in the field, visit the local production facilities, see where the kiosks are, and also look at what they're doing in terms of menstrual hygiene, which is a taboo subject in Rwanda, but they're really pushing the envelope forward and having these discussions so women, young girls, know what's going on with their bodies. This is a picture of her showing some of the products that they use to fill the menstrual pads. And here is a photo from the Gardens from Health. They implement trainings around malnutrition. Specifically, they're doing quite a bit around the first 1,000 days of a woman's birth, from the moment a child is conceived into the first 1,000 days of its life. And you will get to see sort of the actual gardens in which they're training people, and you're going to be visiting some of the women's houses that have benefited from the training. 73% of women are involved in subsistence agriculture in Rwanda. By this particular program thus has a huge impact on women in Rwanda, because they're most of the individuals doing this type of agriculture. And there's been some huge challenges around malnutrition, which they are seeing great successes in with their model. And this is a Dining for Women grantee as well. That evening, you're going to get to go to the Imani Arts Center for a dance class. This is a really cool location where they have everything from like galleries of art to local music and happy hours to dance classes. Naomi and I had a great time here. So you're gonna participate here. Get your groove on. And then we have added to the itinerary, which isn't on the online itinerary, we've added Global Grassroots to this. And on day 6, you're going to visit Global Grassroots and participate in a mindfulness training. They work on women's leadership and mindfulness and post-trauma support. And so we're actually going to participate in a small training and exercise in the morning. And they also are working in social enterprises around women and access to water. So you will do a small water collection with women and from their home to the local tap and have a conversation. We're trying to build avenues for you to have really personal one-on-one conversations with women that you wouldn't normally have access to on any typical tour. So this will be a really great visit. And in the afternoon, we're gonna head up to this beautiful location in Musanze. It's about a 3-hour drive. You're going to be able to visit the next day either the golden monkeys or the gorillas. Both are really rare. The gorilla trekking is a bit more arduous. If you have signed up for a permit, you'll have the opportunity to do that. If you have not, you will have the opportunity to go see the golden monkeys. I will specify the $1,500 that is for the permit. It goes directly to the government. It's a form of sustainable environmental preservation, and it's there to protect the environment and the gorillas that live there. Some beautiful monkeys and gorillas. And this is a silly picture of Naomi on that walking tour. And then you'll have a final farewell dinner that night. And the next day you'll have the opportunity to go shopping and visit local markets on the way to the airport. And I will stop there and see if you have any questions, how I can help.
Well, I have a few questions that I'll ask you, but first I want to say that I had shivers up my spine because we hadn't had a chance to talk about the Global Grassroots mindfulness training and water collection, and I just think that's an amazing addition to the trip. So, in fact, we will be seeing 3 past Dining for Women grantees in action on this trip, which is you know, our members always love seeing where their dollars have gone and the women that they've supported. So, so that's fantastic. One thing that I'd like to just ask quickly is you know, some members have asked, especially if they've never traveled, you know, to different continent or to Africa in particular, how safe is it in Rwanda these days?
Well, Rwanda is very safe and very stable. It is pristinely clean. People are very warm and helpful and supportive. But beyond sort of that sort of exterior level of the politics and the low rate of crime, you're going to be with a local guide the whole time. And you're also going to be with Dining for Women partners. So you're really going to be in very comfortable situations. And by that, I want to preface this. You might feel uncomfortable because you're in a very unique, different environment, but you're not going to be unsafe. And so that's part of the goal of this trip, is to take people into different contexts. Let them think, have some transformable experiences, learn from each other, but at no time do we put people in an environment that is unsafe.
And I know that, through the process of selecting Elevate destinations, I know that you guys do an awful lot of work behind the scenes to make sure that the travelers are safe and to be prepared for any possible eventuality that may occur. In all likelihood, it won't, but in the event that it does, everyone will be well cared for. I know you commented about, I think it was Meredith that said this is a custom itinerary specifically for Dining for Women. It's very, very important to us that that these trips going into the future continue to have that wonderful Dining for Women feel to them that our past trips have had. I traveled on a Dining for Women trip to the Dominican, and I know how that contributed to my appreciation for Dining for Women's work, and also my ability to meet and bond with members from all across the country. Not only has the itinerary been set specifically for Dining for Women, but there will be a Dining for Women representative on every trip. I will be attending on behalf of Dining for Women on the Rwanda trip, and there will be opportunities for our members to learn from each other, how they got involved with Dining for Women, what it means to them, and how their own chapters work. And just to know that when they go back to the States, they have Dining for Women connections, all over the place. Another question that members, that people might want to know about traveling to Rwanda: do I need any special shots or any special visas or permissions to go to Rwanda?
Well, visas you can pick up at the airport. So all of that information is on our frequently asked questions, but we're also happy to answer any questions that people might have. But you do need $30 for your visa at the airport. In terms of shots, everything that we recommend is on the CDC webpage. I will say that they want you to be up to date with your own inoculations that are pretty routine that you want to have in the United States. And then based on your sort of length of travel, we do have some people that are joining longer extensions in the country. You might want to consider taking malaria pills, but that's something that you would want to take up with your own physician and travel doctor about your own health.
Absolutely. Always good to consult with your own doctor about these things. Mm-hmm. So, Catherine or Meredith, what's the climate like in Rwanda in February when the trip will take place?
So it's the beginning of rainy season, but this is in many ways the best time to travel because you're not experiencing daily rains, but the heat, the sweltering heat is over, and you're actually having the rain showers typically for 20-30 minutes in the morning and also in the afternoon, and it settles the dust, so the air is cleaner. I know especially in Kigali there's a lot of traffic and dust, so it becomes a welcome relief. I would say up in Musanze, when you're up with the monkeys or the gorillas, you do want some warmer attire with you, and also rain gear. It is the forest. It's beautiful. It's called the Land of a Thousand Hills. There's mist everywhere. It's an exquisite landscape.
Well, I have to admit that one of my favorite movies and books is Gorillas in the Mist, and so I'm very excited about visiting the Dian Fossey Museum and about the possibility of doing a gorilla trek or a monkey trek. Are there any issues in terms of physical requirements that people have? Are there anything that might limit someone's participation on the trekking? I know you said the gorilla one was a little bit more strenuous.
Yeah, certainly. So first of all, the first thing to be prepared is to have the proper equipment, the right footwear, the right clothing on both treks. You want to feel comfortable. The gorilla trek can be pretty arduous and challenging, but that is largely due to where the locations of the gorillas are. So it can be 3 hours, it can be 8 hours. And that's not something that we can predetermine at this time. You do want to be in decent physical health. You are not on a trail for the most part. You are off the trail because these are wild creatures and they don't follow trails. But with the monkeys, it's a more well-beaten path. And you can get to where the first cluster family of monkeys live within an hour. If your group is adventurous and one is continues on, there's about another hour into the forest, there's another larger group of monkeys that I think the population is around 100. They are agile and fast. So, although there's more of them, sometimes they're trickier to spot.
Well, and I just want to clarify that the monkey track is certainly a part of the trip and included for everyone. And the gorilla trip is an optional thing, due to that permit that Catherine already mentioned. I have talked to other people who have gone on both and said, they truly are both life-changing experiences. And as I think this entire trip will be, I've also heard it said that if you've never been to Africa, this is kind of a great introduction because of the safety and the cleanliness and the stability of the country. And so this is truly a great trip for Dining for Women members. Family and friends are also welcome to attend the trip with you, and so feel free to take them along. We do have a deadline for registration, which is December the 15th, so that all of the reservations can be made and deposits set and whatnot. So it's certainly time to, if you've been thinking about it, to make your decision and sign up now. I'd encourage anyone who is interested to either go to Dining for Women's Facebook page, where they will find a link to the Elevate Destinations website and their specific webpage on Dining for Women's Rwanda trip. They can also get it on Dining for Women's website, right on the homepage. There's a link right there. And if they look at past Dining for Women newsletters, the link is there. So lots of different places. And I encourage you to talk to Meredith or Catherine or their colleague Naomi, and really talk about whether this trip might be something that you're willing to take. And I appreciate very much, Catherine and Meredith, you talking with us today. I think that we will continue to do these kinds of videos for future trips, because it really was a great information and made me even more excited to attend. So everyone, join me and come to Rwanda and have a very meaningful experience and deepen your connection with Dining for Women and with empowering women around the world. Thank you so much for joining us, and I would like to also wish everyone a very happy holiday season as we get into that time of year. So thank you again.
Thank you.
Thank you.